Hello guys, today I am going to do second part of what if Naruto has an unknown Dojutsu. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Hidden Leaf Village in the present. Naruto walked down the path he usually takes to the academy. He was dressed in his trademark orange jumpsuit, ready for the day of team selections for genins like him. But that wasn't the issue on the boy's mind right now, because the events of 2 days ago were still fresh in his mind. He was surprised at first, but the more he thought about it, the less of a problem it became. Actually, Naruto wasn't surprised by it at the time, and it was because of it that the blonde finally understood why the villagers despised him. Because Naruto had only discovered the truth about the Kyuubi being inside him 3 days before. Flashback. Would you like to know the truth, Naruto? Asked Mizuki, who had tricked the blonde into stealing the scroll from the Hokage. Would you like to know why you're despised by everyone in the village? While Iruka was losing consciousness, Naruto said nothing and just stared at him. Don't do it. Naruto looked concerned as Iruka breathed out as he passed out. The Kyuubi, or nine-tailed fox, is sealed within you. You are the one who carries the demon within you. Because of the Kyuubi inside you, everyone blames you for what happened 12 years ago. Don't you notice? Mizuki smirked as he noticed Naruto preoccupied with his own thoughts. It's pointless to live in a village if no one loves you. But the villagers did not despise me back then. Nobody was mad at me for being the demon when Ka-san was still alive. He protested, clearly not understanding what the traitor was saying. Exactly. People were afraid of Kushina Uzumaki, your mother figure, while she was still alive, and no one wanted to irritate her. When she died, the villagers finally had their chance to vent their rage and hatred on you. No, you're not telling the truth. The Kyuubi cannot exist within me. Because I haven't yet seen it. Mizuki laughed and shook his head. I assure you, Naruto-kun, that I am not lying. Everyone despises you, and you have no place in this village. Even Iruka-sensei here despises you because the Kyuubi murdered his parents during the attack. You're wrong, a voice from behind Naruto said. Mizuki and the blonde both widened their eyes when they noticed Iruka standing up and leaning against a tree. What I despise is the Kyuubi. But I don't despise Naruto. He's one of my dear students. And I adore him. As Iruka continued, tears welled up in Naruto's eyes. Naruto Uzumaki is not Kyuubi. He is not the demon. He's a Konoha shinobi. And the next Hokage. Mizuki scoffed and turned away from them. Whatever, I'll be going now. He mockingly exclaimed as he jumped into the trees. Naruto, unsure what to do, approached Iruka, who had collapsed to his knees after forcing himself to stand. What should we do, Iruka-sensei? We must apprehend him before he flees. Inquired the blonde. It's up to you, Naruto. You must stop him and reclaim the scroll. Do it for the sake of the village and your dream, he said this before passing out again. Naruto felt a surge of power surge through him as his body became covered in bright light. As all thoughts left his mind, he turned to face Mizuki's direction. Raisei! He yelled, and in less than a second, he was flying through the trees so fast that he could see Mizuki in front of him. The traitor shivered as he felt something fast pass by him, so fast that all he saw was yellow light. He turned his gaze in front of him, thinking it was just his imagination, and saw Naruto scowling at him. How? He exclaimed in disbelief. It was unthinkable that a genin like him could outrun a chunin like him. And he had a head start, right? The blonde simply smirked and made a seal with his hands. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He yelled, and copies of himself began to appear all over the place. Mizuki turned around only to find Naruto's in every direction. He gritted his teeth and pulled out a kunai, only to have it snatched away by the real Naruto. The traitor began to sweat nervously, and the clones all advanced. Flashback concludes. Naruto didn't care much about it, but he was relieved to finally understand what made the villagers despise him so much. What really piqued his interest at the time was that the jutsu, or ability that he had created 6 years before, managed to activate for the second time. He remembered calling it Raisei, but he had no idea why. It was as if he said it unconsciously. He didn't use the power for fun and games this time, instead easily chasing down the traitor, Mizuki, giving Iruka time to subdue him. His eyes did not change shape this time either. Of course, his sensei was curious about what had happened and how Naruto had managed to catch up to him while he was unconscious. The blonde didn't say anything about his new ability, vowing to make it public once he figured out how to use and control it properly. Because it was activating more and more frequently at the time, but only when he needed it the most. As a result, he had grown accustomed to it. He was being pursued by the Anbu to be brought to the old man while he was painting the faces on the Hokage monument. The blonde's flying ability once again saved him from certain death by zipping through the streets towards the training areas, where the Anbu eventually lost sight of him. It happened again. He grumbled to himself as he walked through the academy doors. This time, it was slightly longer than the previous times I was pursued. He approached and opened the door to his old classroom. Opening the door seemed to cause something to fall from the sky, and time seemed to slow down for Naruto. His body was enveloped in yellow light, and he flew to the opposite side of the room in the blink of an eye for everyone inside. Time reverted to normal, and Naruto stared at the door as the light surrounding his body slowly faded away. A bucket of water was nearby, with the liquid flowing freely. "Thank you," he said internally, relieved that his Raisei had saved him from embarrassment. He still needed to name it, but for the time being, the academy is his top priority. "How did you evade the bucket?" one of his classmates demanded. "You can run fast?" exclaimed someone else. "How did you manage to avoid it?" "That prank was designed specifically for a loser like you," said a boy wearing a hooded jacket and a puppy atop his head. Kiba Inuzuka of the Inuzuka clan was his name. He had an alpha personality that caused him to treat other guys as inferior, and his best friend was his own puppy, Akamaru. Only Sasuke-kun is capable of such feats. "You're just envious of Sasuke abilities." "Kuns," yelled a pink-haired girl and a blonde girl, both of whom claimed to be Sasuke's true love. Sakura Haruno and Ino Yamanaka were their names, respectively. Both were Sasuke's die-hard fangirls who would do anything for him, and it got on his nerves. He once considered Sakura to be a girl with whom he could have a relationship, but after learning of her obsession with Sasuke, he abandoned her. Ino, on the other hand, was significantly worse. For him, at least. When Naruto accidentally stepped on her foot during their academy days, she began to chase him with a killer intent, claiming that Sasuke was the only one who could step on her feet. It's a good thing she didn't see him fly away when he finally did. "Troublesome," muttered a boy with a pineapple-like hairstyle before falling asleep on his desk. Shikamaru Nara was the Nara clan's heir. He is the smartest person in the class, but he is also a slacker. Nonetheless, he regards Naruto as a close friend, and the two have spoken more frequently than usual. "Naruto, that was incredible. I'm curious what kind of jutsu that is," inquired Choji Akamichi, a fat boy eating chips. He, like Shikamaru, had a stable relationship with the blonde, and they actually hang out together most of the time. There was only one thing that irritated Naruto about him, and that was his insatiable appetite. Naruto, on the other hand, paid no attention to any of them. His gaze was fixed on a certain black-haired boy who didn't seem to care and was simply staring out the window. Sasuke wasn't always like this. He and Naruto would act like brothers during their early academy days. When a Sasuke fangirl threatened Naruto for getting too close to her love, the Uchiha would step in and defend his friend. However, After only 7 months in the academy, Sasuke's personality shifted from that of a good, loyal, and dependable friend to that of an arrogant, sensitive, and ignorant jerk who only cared about getting stronger. His personal problems were the primary reason. A spurting sound woke him up one night while he was sleeping, and he immediately went to the living room to investigate. When he arrived, he discovered his mother in a pool of her own blood. While he was wallowing in self-pity, his own brother, Itachi Uchiha, emerged from the shadows and confronted the boy. He apparently returned to Konoha to finish what he began years ago. Sasuke couldn't take it anymore. His mother had died, the entire clan had died, and he and his brother were the only ones left. As he passed out, he felt a surge of power rush to his eyes. While Naruto was mourning the death of his Makoto Obasan, he was more concerned about Sasuke at the time. He tried to console him, but it didn't work. That's when something inside the Uchiha snapped. He began to prioritize his training over all else, fully committing to killing Itachi and restoring his clan. Every time Naruto tried to help his friend, Sasuke just ignored him or said he didn't have any friends. Over time, the raven-haired boy grew more arrogant and proud, adopting the typical Uchiha traits. Naruto, who was still being interrogated by various classmates, began to walk towards the nearest open chair, which was behind the table Sasuke was sitting in. He came to a halt and cleared his throat as he approached Sasuke's table. Sasuke's gaze shifted to the blonde without turning his head, and Naruto responded by narrowing his gaze at him as the tension in the room increased slightly. "What do you want?" snarled Uchiha. "What's the matter with you?" "We used to be friends, but you seem to have forgotten," he stated unequivocally. "Makoto Obasan would not want you to behave in this manner for her sake. I know you want to avenge her, but if you want to be stronger, you need help." He stood up and fixed his gaze on Naruto. "Don't ever bring up my mother again, you hear me?" he warned, his Sharingan exploding in an attempt to frighten the blonde. After all, the Uchiha's jutsu was feared. "And I'm not sure what you're on about." "We were not friends, and we will never be," he concluded, with Sakura and Ino sticking their tongues out at Naruto for receiving an intense glare from Sasuke. "Sasuke, your eyes will not frighten me. We're both aware of it." "Really?" asked Sasuke, mockingly, with a smirk. "I would like to. The blonde felt something approaching him from behind and sidestepped just in time before Torio, one of his classmates, collided with him. Torio allegedly started a brawl with his classmate, Kiba. Torio hurled insults at his rival shortly after Naruto arrived, and Inuzuka punched him in the face, sending him flying. Torio pinned Sasuke to the wall and crushed him in the process. The Uchiha had a tick mark on his head, while Naruto simply chuckled and proceeded to his seat. He noticed that the person sitting next to him was Hinata Hyuga, the most shy person in the class who also has a huge crush on Naruto. Naruto sat down and noticed Hinata dwindling her fingers while looking down. "Is there something wrong, Hinata?" he asked, and she shivered at the sound of his voice. "You appear pale and scared." I'm fine, Naruto-kun," she stuttered, furiously blushing. She couldn't help herself. Every time he tried to talk to her, her feelings would erupt into a burst of shyness at any moment. He moved in closer to her, making her blush even more. "Hinata, you have something on your mind. It appears to be dirt or something," he said, his gaze fixed on her white eyes. "And Naruto-kun, you're staring at me." She reflected to herself. "He's so handsome." She was so engrossed in her own thoughts that she didn't notice him touching her face to remove the dirt he was talking about. "Hey, Naruto Baka!" exclaimed Sakura, palms on her hips. "Don't you think you're getting a little too close to Hinata?" she inquired, concerned that the idiot was too close to the shy girl, but Naruto ignored her. Sasuke, still irritated that an idiot like Torio had pinned him to the wall, kicked him away with force as he stood up and brushed the dirt off his clothes. Torio turned around with a tick mark on his head, ready to exact vengeance on the Uchiha, but Sasuke kicked him in the stomach, sending him away as the raven-haired boy sat back in his chair. Torio was sent by the Force to collide with Naruto, and he couldn't feel it this time. As a result, the blonde fell forward while screaming a little, causing Hinata to awaken from her trance. Naruto's face was the first thing that caught the girl's attention, itching to get closer to her and making her blush. However, before she could even realize what was going on, their lips brushed against each other as they both fell to the floor. Torio, who had managed to keep himself from falling, turned around to see Naruto on top of Hinata Hyuga. As he passed out from a massive nosebleed, perverted thoughts about the two of them flooded his mind. What occurred? Ino inquired of Sakura, but the pink-haired girl simply stood there with her mouth open, staring at the desk where Naruto and Hinata had been sitting earlier. What exactly is this sensation on my lips? Hinata reflected to herself. It's so warm and good. She was getting lost in her own fantasies. Does this look like a kiss? If that's the case, it's wonderful. I wonder if Naruto-kun could kiss me like this. The girl is too shy to admit it, but she had a slightly perverted personality. Naruto's eyes opened, and he realized he was on top of someone. When he looked down, he saw that he and Hinata were on the floor, with him at the helm. Yes, as in, on top of the world. When he saw that his own lips were joined with hers, he blushed furiously. To put it another way, they were kissing. He tried to pull away out of embarrassment and respect for the girl below him when he felt her tongue invade his own mouth and his eyes widened at what she was trying to do. What could Naruto do now that she wants more? Why won't she let me pull away? He wondered as he looked at her figure. Does she care about me? I admit she is cute and beautiful, but I never imagined she would have such strong feelings for me. Come on, people. The villagers think I'm a demon. I never imagined someone could love me so much. When he felt her tongue wrestle with his own, he felt blood rush down to his lower regions. Fuck it, she'll get it if she wants it. He began kissing her back, and she let out a soft moan, the pleasure coursing through her body. The Hyuga was about to run her hands through his blonde locks after a minute of ferocious lip locking when their eyes snapped open due to a loud voice. Get a room, you two! Yelled Ino, his face flushed with rage. Ino, you're a jerk. Hinata's face flushed with embarrassment, and her eyes widened at what she was seeing. She was kissing Naruto, her biggest crush, her love, and he was having a good time. But all good things must come to an end for her when he pulled away and stood up with a big blush, making him look adorable. I'm sorry, Hinata. I didn't intend to. It was just a coincidence that I landed on you. Please accept my apologies. He quickly blurted out, raising his hands in defeat. But the girl remained on the floor, staring at Naruto with lust-filled eyes, but her face had turned bright red. So it was true. She exclaimed. Naruto-kun, I kissed you. Her shy personality took over right away. What am I going to do? What if he develops a dislike for me? What if he believes I'm a pervert? What if he keeps his distance from me? Oh, Noah, she gulped and exhaled, Naruto-kun. Before collapsing into unconsciousness. When he saw her close her eyes, the blonde raised an eyebrow. Hinata? He said, snapping his fingers. Hinata? He asked louder, but she didn't move. He sat beside her and moved his ear closer to her chest to listen to her heartbeat. Oh, I thought something bad happened, he sighed relievedly. I need to bring her to the clinic, he thought as he carried her bridal style, and when he stood up, he saw his classmates' blushing faces, minus Sasuke and Shikamaru. Why you? Sakura stuttered, but he was already out the door, carrying the unconscious Hinata. When he arrived at the clinic, he went inside and shut the door behind him. He sat beside her and gently placed her on one of the beds. As she slept peacefully, he held her hand in his. While sleeping, she resembled an angel. He quickly looked around to see if there was anyone around. He quickly planted a kiss on Hinata's forehead after noticing none. "Listen, Hinata," he began, knowing she couldn't hear him and thus not dying of embarrassment. "I've never known anyone who cared about me as much as you do. I'm aware that you have feelings for me. Nobody could kiss another person like that unless they had feelings for that person. I'm not sure if I feel the same way, but one thing is certain. I care about you, Hinata." He noticed a pen and paper nearby and began to write. He stood up after a minute and tucked it inside her clenched fist. "Okay, I'll respond once I've gained enough strength. Right now, I'm still a wimp." In embarrassment, he scratched his hair. "If I gain strength, I will be able to protect my precious people, including you." He walked towards the door and came to a halt at the exit. "I hope you wake up soon," he muttered as he exited the room. He approached their classroom and grasped the doorknob, but he hesitated to open it, recalling the previous events. Instead, he gently opened it before slamming the door shut, causing the board eraser to fall to the floor. He smirked as he walked inside, avoiding the alleged incident, only to find Sasuke and Sakura alone in the room. "Welcome aboard, Dobi," Sasuke observed. "You're running late." The blonde sat down in a nearby chair. "Don't tell me that while our teacher is still absent, Teme." He retaliated, causing Sakura to stomp over to Naruto and give him a glare. "Don't ever call Sasuke-kun that, or you'll feel my wrath," she warned, and an angry-looking giant version of herself appeared behind her. Naruto just snorted and stared at Uchiha. "So you're employing girls to do your bidding now?" he joked. "Don't you think it's kind of degrading for Uchihas?" Instead of continuing this pointless conversation, the raven-haired boy simply locked eyes with Naruto until the door opened. A tall man in his 20s with silvery white hair and a mask covering most of his face walked into the room, unaware of the eraser that had fallen on the floor earlier. He stepped on it and landed on his back, making the kids in the room laugh, including Sasuke, albeit with a small chuckle. The man stood up and brushed the chalk off his vest, oblivious to the chalk on his back. He stepped in front of the three and looked them over suspiciously. He began to speak with his hand under his chin. "My first impression is, I despise you all." Sasuke exhaled. "Hey!" exclaimed Sakura. Naruto remained silent. "Just kidding," he exclaimed, his eyes twinkling. "I apologize for being late, but I assure you that it will not happen again." He put on a serious expression. "Hello and good morning. You three have joined Team 7 as of today. I am Kakashi Hatake, a Konoha Junin rank shinobi. I will be your sensei at least until you all reach the rank of Chunin." He checked his watch. "We need to get to know each other better if we are to work well together. In 5 minutes, we'll meet on the roof. Please do not be late." He said this before sunshining away. 10 minutes later, on the roof. The second was irritating Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. Their teacher had just promised that he would no longer be late, but he was already late. They simply devised a strategy to make their sensei realize that making them wait is not amusing. When Kakashi arrived through Shunshin, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura rushed him from all three sides, ready to punch him, but Kakashi simply shunshined away from them, causing the three to punch themselves. They collapsed as Kakashi looked at them with an eye smile. "Even though this isn't our first lesson, do you three already know how to collaborate? I'm very proud of you," he commented, causing the three to perspire. "I'm sorry for being late. I had to assist an elderly lady with her groceries." All three of them had tick marks on their heads. "Let's form one circle and get down to business." Kakashi spoke again after they had all sat down. "You must first learn more about your teammates and teacher in order to work well with them. We will begin by introducing ourselves, beginning with our names, likes, dislikes, and future goals. I'll get started first. The three genins exchanged glances before returning their attention to Kakashi. Hitaki Kakashi is my name. Reading my books, visiting my friends' graves at the cemetery, and a certain purple-haired Junin are among my interests. Naruto shivered at what he had just said, knowing exactly who he was referring to. People who abandon their friends and traitors are two of my pet peeves. My ambition for the future is to be strong enough to protect my friends and comrades, as well as the village itself. He turned to face his three students. Seems simple enough, doesn't it? They just shrugged. You go first, he said, motioning to Naruto. The blonde swallowed and cleared his throat. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Ramen, training, and pranking people are among my interests. When the blonde said her final words, the three others began to sweat. Traitors and ignorant people are two of my pet peeves. My ambition for the future is to become Hokage and be recognized by everyone in the village. He exclaimed the final part, raising his fist in the air. Do you want to be Hokage someday? Kakashi inquired. Oh, yeah. I'm going to be the Hokage one day. It's true. He gave his teacher a thumbs up, and Kakashi smiled as he turned to Sasuke, signaling his turn. Sasuke clasped his hands together and rested his head on them. My name is Sasuke Uchiha. There aren't many things I like and a lot of things I despise. My ambition for the future is to assassinate a certain man and restore my clan's honor. He finished as images of a Sharingan and his brother, Itachi, flashed through his mind. I think I know who he's talking about, Kakashi thought to himself before turning to face Sakura. Before speaking, the girl blushed profusely. Haruno Sakura is my name. My favorite characters are Sasuke-kun. She paused to gauge Uchiha's reaction, but he was unconcerned. My family and spending time with my friends. People who despise Sasuke-kun, those who try to steal him from me, and traitors are among my pet peeves. When she heard her first two dislikes, Kakashi began to sweat. I just hope she's not a yandere like one of the characters in my book. He thought to himself before standing up. Okay, now that we're more acquainted, I'd like to put you three to the test in the field. Don't be late to the practice field tomorrow at 7 a.m. He said with an eye smile before walking away, leaving the three with tick marks on their heads. Tell that to yourself, Sensei. They all yelled. The Hidden Leaf Gate. A hooded man carrying a scroll made his way down the path towards Hidden Leaf Village. As he approached the village, he was deep in thought. The time has come, young Naruto. He thought. You are the one whom the eyes have chosen to bring peace to the world. I can tell your heart is pure, unlike the other two reincarnates. He came to a complete stop in front of the gate. He focused his attention on the scroll he was holding and directed some of his chakra into it. I believe in you, young one. You have a lot to learn and master. Don't let the world fall apart because you used your power to help others. I sense a great danger approaching that will endanger the world. War divides everyone here, but it will also be the solution to everything. He was cut off by another person's voice. Can we assist you? A spiky-haired Chunin approached the man, accompanied by another. His name was Katetsu, and Izumo was the other. Their regular job was to keep an eye on the gate and manage everyone who came and went from the village. Yes, he breathed out, his voice gravelly. I request that you deliver this scroll to the young Naruto Uzumaki's residence. But I warn you not to look at its contents, because only he can read the scroll, he warned as he walked away, pointing his finger at the two of them. How do we know this isn't a scam or a bomb? Izumo asked, narrowing his eyes at the vanishing figure. Then kill me before I escape. The hooded man joked as he walked away from the village. Izumo looked at Katetsu, who just shrugged and walked off towards Naruto's apartment, holding the scroll. The streets of Hidden Leaf Village. Naruto Uzumaki was walking down the street towards his apartment after Team 7's first team meeting. He was only going home for a quick breather and a glass of water before heading to training. Kakashi mentioned earlier that he'd be testing their overall ability in teamwork, and if that's the case, he'll need to train if he wants to beat whatever challenge their teacher has in store for them. He wanted to show off his meteor, Raisei, so they could see what he was capable of, but that was his biggest problem. Naruto has no idea how to use the meteor or when to activate it. Nonetheless, he would try to master it because he needed to if he was to realize his dream. That Raisei, he thought to himself as an image of himself bathed in yellow light appeared in his mind. I need to learn how to properly activate it. He raised a hand to his chin, deep in thought about his situation. The only jutsus I'm familiar with are the Fireball, Phoenix Flower, Dragon Flame, and Shadow Clones. I'd like to learn more. He had an idea, but then he began to sweat profusely. Okay. I don't like reading books, but if I can't figure out how to use the meteor, I guess I'll go to the library and learn about new fire jutsus. His eyes widened as he realized something was about to hit him from behind, similar to what happened in the academy. He sidestepped, not wanting to get into any more trouble for the day, and discovered that it was just a small rock. He looked at the person who threw it, and they were just small children sticking their tongues out at him before fleeing. The blonde simply shrugged and went about his business. Many villagers stared at him on his way to his apartment, but they couldn't do anything. Since that not-so-minor incident with Naruto 6 years ago, the Hokage has made it a village rule that no one can touch or harm the blonde in any physical way. That didn't stop them from treating him differently than the rest of society. For example, when Naruto went to buy supplies for the academy, every store owner doubled the price for him. He didn't want to cause any more problems for the old man, so he agreed to the demands of the people. He arrived at his house after enduring a barrage of scowls and glares. It was a good thing he didn't have to unconsciously use his meteor again, because otherwise the villagers would become more wary of him, and the last thing he wanted was to have to pay 3 times the price for the things he bought. He took off his jacket, ninja pouch, and headband and tossed them on his couch before collapsing into his bed. Not only did he have his mysterious powers on his mind, but also his new team, the village itself, and Hinata. Let's see. Right now my top priority is figuring out what I can do. My eyes haven't changed appearance since those years ago. He was haunted by the image of the fat vendor and the other villagers about to murder him. That was the last time I saw my eyes that way. Was it merely a coincidence? He rolled over, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. Or is it some kind of jutsu? He knew about the various types of jutsu because he had studied at the academy. Ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, kenjutsu, kinjutsu, fuinjutsu, and jutsu were all available. Jutsus, eye techniques, are techniques that involve the eyes, and there are currently 2 known Dojutsus in the world, which are the Sharingan and Byakugan. The Sharingan specializes in illusions, whereas the Byakugan specializes in Tenketsu, chakra points. Both are bloodlines, which means they are connected to a single clan, the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, respectively. Naruto had 2 classmates with these bloodlines, Sasuke and Hinata, and he was already aware of how powerful the 2 Dojutsus were. It made him wonder if he possessed a jutsu. If he did, why didn't he get to learn more about it? They only ever learned the Sharingan and Byakugan during his time at the academy. Did that imply he didn't have one? Or were his eyes a hidden jutsu? The shinobi world is full of mysteries. Some can be revealed, while others will remain hidden forever. There are hundreds of secret jutsus, each with a limited number of people who are aware of it. Perhaps the blonde possesses a secret jutsu that only he is aware of? Whoa, if these eyes of mine were only mine, I'd be really strong in the future. He boasted proudly, a sheepish grin on his face. And once I figure out how to use it correctly, I'll be able to protect the people I care about. A brilliant thought then entered his mind. Wait. I read that the Sharingan and Byakugan have a variety of techniques available to the user. If I truly have, what if my eyes can perform other techniques? That'd be awesome. He thought, his eyes turning into stars, imagining how strong he'd be if that actually happened. He abruptly returned to his normal appearance. Naruto's mental landscape. If only this seal wasn't so powerful, Kit. Kurama sighed as he lay down in his cage. I could help you with this problem, but I'm not sure how I could talk to you with this stupid gate in the way. I know I promised Kushina that I would look after you, but I can't if I can't even talk to you. He straightened up and stroked his chin. Like you, Kit, this unknown ability of yours has bothered me for years. A vision of Naruto bathed in bright light flashed through his mind. I watched every time you dashed, flew, or whatever you call it, and every time I wondered. I was wondering how you did it. Your eyes activated it the first time you did it, but the subsequent times. It's almost as if you do it unconsciously when things get bad. He returned his gaze to Naruto, who was still lying on the bed. If you truly have a jutsu, Naruto. I'm guessing neither Minato nor Kushina are aware of this. If they did, she would have told me, but she didn't. If this is true, how did you obtain it? The ability to defy gravity is a serious power that only a few shinobi possess. I only know of one person who can fly, and he's been dead for centuries. Is it possible that you have his blood in your veins? Naruto's residence. He exhaled a deep sigh. That would only happen if I had a jutsu like Sasuke or Hinata. Okay. I've done the meteor thing a few times, but how do I know it's not just a trick of my eyes? I remember my eyes changing shape when I first used it, but now I'm doing it without any changes. He sat up and raised his right hand to his chin. I need to figure out my eyes. But how? He raised an eyebrow as the sound of a knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Visitors were extremely rare for him. Kushina, Makoto, Hiruzen, and Sasuke were the only people who had ever visited his house. Nonetheless, he went to the door and opened it, revealing his landlord's menacing appearance on the doorstep. The landlord clearly despised the fact that Naruto was living in his property, but he had no choice because Naruto had been ordered to live there by the Hokage. He didn't bother Naruto all that much, but whenever he did, it was always about the blonde's monthly rent. I paid my rent last week, Naruto announced, breaking the silence. What brings you here? It's unusual for you to visit here, he continued, raising an eyebrow in the process. The landlord raised a scroll and hurled it at the boy with such force that it nearly struck the blonde in the face. He was fortunate enough to catch it. He looked at it for a moment before returning his gaze to the landlord. That trash was sent for you, demon. He snarled, his hatred and anger for the boy growing stronger with each passing second. He'd succumb to his lust for vengeance at any moment. Naruto had no idea, but the Kyuubi was responsible for the landlord's family's death. Who sent this? He inquired, his caution replaced by curiosity. According to a Chunin, an old man wanted to give it to you. It's ironic that a heartless creature should receive a gift from a pure and wise old man. He taunted, hoping to make the demon snap. Oh, then tell him I said, thank you. He exclaimed as he shut the door behind him. Since the door shut, the man has gritted his teeth and scoffed, vowing to find a way to exorcise the demons someday. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as he heard the landlord's footsteps softening through the door. He walked towards his bedroom, looking at the scroll he was holding. He unrolled the paper after removing the small band that held it together. It was empty. His pupils constricted and rage welled up within him. They have the audacity to play this prank on me? I'm the one who should be pranking people, not you. He argued in his head. Even Kurama, who was watching from inside his cage, sighed and shook his head. Oh, when I see and figure out who had the nerve to pull this kind of prank on me, I'll paint his house red when he was cut off mid-sentence when he felt his eyes begin to sting a bit in pain, and he closed them and slapped both of his hands to his face, not wanting to feel the pain any longer. AAAARRRGGGGHHHH. I cannot take it any longer. He yelled, releasing his face and revealing his yellow eyes to the world once more. Both had retained their previous appearance from 6 years ago and had not changed. They still glow the same yellow color, as does the star in the center of his eyes. Naruto, on the other hand, didn't seem to notice. That is, until he turned around and saw himself in the mirror. He stood up and walked over to the mirror. He was lost at the sight of eyes as he stared at his figure. He began jumping up and down with joy all of a sudden. Oh my God! I did it! He exclaimed triumphantly. My eyes shifted. They had the same appearance from A. He came to a halt when he noticed writing in the mirror's reflection that he could see from the scroll. Before returning to his bed, he turned around and raised an eyebrow. He looked down at the scroll, which now had writing on it, unlike before. Naruto's mental landscape. He activated it again. Thought the Kyuubi as he watched Naruto from within his cage. And now the scroll has revealed its contents. Is it only visible to those with eyes like the Kits? Naruto's residence. The blonde started reading what was inside. Naruto dislikes reading, but when the situation calls for it, he accepts it. The last time he read was in a class with Iruka-sensei, when he was forced to read aloud an entire chakra chapter as punishment for being late. As he went through the scroll's contents, unrolling more of it and seeing it as a very long message, his face showed a variety of expressions, and it was difficult to tell whether the scroll meant good or harm. He didn't start jumping up and down in joy until he finished reading and was fighting the urge to cry. You are now a part of something bigger than yourself, young one, because you can read this. There are many things in the world that you are unaware of, and one of them is eyes. You know your eyes as well as you know your name, don't you? Everything is visible to the eyes, from the birds fluttering above to the vast ocean stretching at every point, and to this village you call home. However, your eyes are capable of much more. Others, such as the white eye and the copy eye, may have awakened their own powers, but yours is unique. They are the only pair in the world with opposing forms of power. You might not believe it, but it's true. I'm sure you've already seen some of the abilities it provides, but that's not the end of it. Your eyes draw power from the stars above. The planet's power. The power of asteroids, comets, meteors, and other celestial bodies. In other words, you have the Uchtengan, the universe's eye. Your eyes must not be taken lightly, as their abilities are unique. I never got to see and feel what it does, so I'm leaving it to you. The eyes themselves appear to rival Rinnegan of the Sage of the Six Paths, but you'll have to figure that out for yourself. Its abilities have given rise to what the shinobi world refers to as a bloodline, the Uchten. Before you can learn its abilities, you must first understand why it chose you. When you were born, your eyes spoke. Long ago, the Sage of the Six Paths, or the world's savior, had 2 sons. Indra was the elder, and Ashura was the younger. My chakra had sent a meteoroid from space to Earth by the time Indra was born. My chakra was transferred to the firstborn, Indra, when it crashed to the surface. Until that fateful day, he was the first to gain my power. He adored both of them, but in his final days, he was forced to choose one of his sons to be the heir to his power. Indra wished for his father's favor, allowing his heart to open to darkness for the sake of his father's approval. Finally, the sage decided on Ashura. Following that, Indra was filled with jealousy and hatred. Because of this, the Uchtengan abandoned him forever, and my chakra returned to space. Generations later, the spirits of Ashura and Indra would reincarnate into various bodies, with the firstborn of the two always being chosen by the eyes. However, if the chosen one falls into darkness in any way, the eyes will never give up their power. There were 2 other reincarnates before you. You may recognize them as the founders of your village. Senju Hashirama and Madara Uchiha Hashirama represented Ashura, while Madara represented Indra. Another meteoroid from space crashed into this world, and power was once again passed to the firstborn, Madara. He was the closest to unlocking the potential powers of the eyes of all the reincarnates before him. But it was his goal that drew all eyes away from him. As a result, no reincarnate has ever wielded the power of the eyes. The Uchtengan was created for the benefit of all. It will always be a means of achieving peace, but all of the firstborn reincarnates had darkness in their hearts. And there is no such peace in the presence of darkness. In your case, it appears that you are boisterous, loud, competitive, and an idiot. As much as I want to believe it, that is not why the eyes chose you. Uzumaki Naruto, you are the reincarnation of Ashura, the son of the Six Paths Sage. You must discover the reincarnate of Indra on your own. Young Uzumaki, you are an outlier. Ashura was never the firstborn, and you are the first Ashura reincarnate to be born before Indra. You may believe that only Indra reincarnates should be the first to be born, but this isn't true. What matters is Ashura's heart and soul. Uzumaki, his chakra is within you. You must investigate your own past if you wish to learn more about it. I'll explain why the eyes chose you now. As I previously stated, you have many characteristics that distinguish you from the other Ashura reincarnates. However, your heart, not your body or mind, speaks for you. Is it correct that you want to be strong in order to protect your precious people? You want to be the best in your village and become the leader of your village. Those are your life goals, and you intend to achieve them through peaceful and good-willed means, for which the eyes chose you. Continue to pursue your dream because it is what motivates you to work hard. I request that you not reveal your eyes to anyone else unless you are strong enough to protect not only yourself, but also those you care about. Many people would like to have the Uchtengan, but there is only one pair in the world, and it belongs to you. You have complete control over your Uchtengan. Many challenges await you, Naruto. However, the eyes will assist you on your journey. Continue to be a good shinobi, Ashura's reincarnation. History may not repeat itself this time. You are now prepared for the abilities that your eyes can bestow. Naruto, don't give in to the darkness. Don't be like the previous reincarnations. When you face your greatest challenges, you are not alone. Others care about you and would gladly assist you, but you must see and know them for yourself. I hand over the Uchtengan to you, Uzumaki. Take care of it because it will lead you. Until next time. P.S. I'll send you 2 gifts that will help you on your adventures soon. Naruto, you have piqued my interest, which is a rare occurrence. I will always keep an eye on you. May the stars' guidance shine brightly on you. Naruto finally stopped jumping around after more than 5 minutes and collapsed onto the bed exhausted. He tightened his grip on the scroll in his right hand. Oh, don't worry, old man. He told himself. I will not disappoint you. I will defend everyone who is important to me. I will never, ever be like that goddamn Indra or any of his reincarnations. He stood up again and raised his fist in the air. There's no doubt I'll master all of these, believe it. He exclaimed before grabbing his jacket, pouch, and headband and fleeing the building. Naruto's mental landscape. Kurama's mouth was agape as he considered what he had seen. He cleared his throat and shook his head. Well, that was interesting. He exhaled before stroking his chin in thought. Wow, I had no idea there was so much about my father that I didn't know. After all, I was correct about the kit having a jutsu. That meteor thing he can do is a jutsu. Now might be a good time to stay awake because I want to see what it can do. Let's see if it's as powerful as the guy who wrote it claims. Questions can wait. He reasoned before returning his attention to Naruto, who was running towards the nearest training area. The Hokage mansion. Hiruzen was getting closer to a room. An Anbu is standing near the double doors. Before entering the room, the Hokage paused for a moment to allow the Anbu to bow. There were many people inside. To his left were the various clan heads of the village, known as the Shinobi Council, and to his right were civilians who stood together as the Civilian Council. 3 people were standing near the Shinobi Council. Mitokado Homura, Utatane Kaharu, and Shimura Danzo were their names. Back in their genin days, they were Hiruzen's old teammates under Tobarama Senju. They are now his elders or advisors. The Sandames sat at a small table near the center of the room. "Good morning to everyone," he said boredly. He was about to get some rest after dealing with paperwork, but the damn council wouldn't let him. "May I inquire as to why the council has been called?" "Yes, Hoikage-sama," one of the civilian council merchants said as he stood up. "We had all heard that the Naruto Uzumaki has completed his studies at the academy. You can't let him become a shinobi, Hoikage-sama. He's far too dangerous for that." Hiruzen sighed and rolled his eyes, as if he knew this day was coming. "The boy is not a threat. He has already proven his devotion to Konoha, and it has been an enjoyable 11 years with no Kyuubi to contend with." "He is clearly a demon, Hoikage-sama," screamed a woman with yellowish hair, prompting most of the people inside to cover their ears. "All he needs is the right moment to unleash the damn fox on our village." "You should choose your words carefully, civilian," Hiruzen snarled, making her nervously sweat. "My law is in effect as long as I am the Hoikage." "But, Hoikage-sama," another merchant added as he stood up. "You must not allow him to come into contact with the clan heirs. They are far too valuable to be involved with the demon." He pointed to the Shinobi Council as all the clan heads rolled their eyes at his explanation. "Enough already." Hiruzen issued a warning by standing up and slamming his fists on the table in front of him. "You may not realize it, but Naruto has already saved our village," he stated flatly, drawing a puzzled look from almost everyone. Mizuki, one of the academy's teachers, duped the boy into stealing the scroll of seals from the Hokage's vault 2 days ago. Iruka arrived and confronted the traitor before Naruto could give it to him. Finally, Mizuki was about to flee when Naruto apprehended him. "I don't know what I would have done if it hadn't been for the boy." "See what I mean, Hoikage-sama? He only stole a scroll and is already far too powerful," the merchant continued. "If we want the village to survive another Kyuubi attack, we must kill him right now." "If you want to survive another attack, you must not kill him because doing so will simply release the Kyuubi in our village," he said solemnly. "My name is Hoikage, and my word is law." "This meeting has been adjourned," he mused as he watched everyone leave the room, rubbing his temples. "Curse you, Minato," he thought to himself. "Practice fields. I finally finished. Woohoo." As he flew through the air with his meteor, Naruto exclaimed. He had spent the previous hour practicing how to properly perform the meteor, which was unstable in his first jutsu. There were apparently many jutsus that he could learn, but the meteor was the one he chose first because it would be extremely useful in a variety of situations. He decided to take a chance and flew towards the village, past the buildings, and chuckled when he noticed the civilians looking up into the air, wondering what was going on. He landed on top of the Hoikage monument, his gaze narrowed at the training area outside the village where he had left his belongings. "Raisei!" he yelled, his body covered in bright light as he flew past the village and into the training area. Unfortunately, history has a habit of repeating itself. He was so lost in his own world that he didn't notice the tree in front of him, so he crashed into it and fell to the ground. He stood up a few moments later and rubbed the sore spot on his head. He turned off his Uchtengan and returned to the tree, where he had left his pouch and the scroll. He unrolled the scroll and scanned through the Uchtengan's jutsus. Says here I can use low-level jutsus without activating my eyes, he read from the scroll. However, it is less powerful than the jutsu used when the Uchtengan is active. Well, this is good news, he reasoned to himself. After all, I still need to conceal my ancestry. I can't let anyone see my eyes until I'm strong enough. Let us now return to training. He scanned the scroll once more, looking for a good jutsu to try. After a few minutes, he chose a good one and stood up, ready to execute it. Let's try this. He reasoned as he focused solely on his chakra. Dosei no Ringu. He yelled, and 2 spinning energy discs appeared in his hands. He examined the 2 discs and noticed that they were the size of dinner plates. I wonder. He said as he tossed one of them into the air and the other into a nearby tree, both of which caused a small explosion. The one that hit the tree left a hole, indicating that it exploded. Wow, this will come in handy. Let's try this one. He resumed his original stance and position. Tengoku no Kasen. He exclaimed, pointing his right index finger at another nearby tree. A few moments later, a laser beam shot out of his finger and struck the tree, knocking it back 20 meters. He breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness it's not a lethal technique. I don't want to kill people in cold blood with this jutsu. Let us now. When he heard a familiar voice from behind him, he was cut off from both his thoughts and his training. Dobi, how did you do that? Sasuke inquired. Naruto had just hit a tree with a laser beam from his finger. Whatever it was, it would undoubtedly aid him in his vengeance quest. He has to learn it. Naruto turned around, a calm expression on his face. Oh, Teme. He said, using the nickname he made up for the Uchiha. Can you do it quickly? I'm here for training. I demand you teach me the jutsu you just performed. He exclaimed, a sinister grin on his face. What kind of jutsu? Dobi, I don't have time for your games. I simply want you to teach me the jutsu you performed. I can't, Naruto confessed. He needed to think quickly or Sasuke would find out about his jutsu. How come you can't teach me? With a tick mark on his face, Sasuke complained. Is this jerk messing with him? Because it was not amusing. His mission was far more important than the fun and games of the dobi. Naruto lied, because all I did was a genjutsu. Sasuke gave him a puzzled look. Maybe you just walked into the path of my deception. You see, I'm preparing for tomorrow's test with Kakashi-sensei, and I'm trying to learn a new genjutsu that will greatly benefit me. He declared proudly. Sasuke scoffed and put his hands in the pockets of his shorts. He turned around and started walking away, but just as he was about to leave, he paused and spoke. You want to beat Kakashi-sensei? He asked, his face blank. Of course, she says. Then come here at 6:30 tomorrow. I have a good idea of what sensei will do to put us to the test. If you want to beat him, you must first show up. I've already informed Sakura of this. Please don't be late, Dobi. He said before actually walking away. Naruto sighed in relief when he noticed Sasuke was finally out of sight, thankful that the Teme had not discovered his Uchtengan. Before Sasuke interrupted, he shook his head to calm himself and returned to his original stance. Let's keep going. Tomorrow, at 7:24 a.m. Kakashi entered the training grounds but immediately used Shunshin to avoid the rain above him. He reappeared on top of a tree, smiling at the 3 genins who had crashed to the ground. You 3 could be an unstoppable force. He exclaimed, but all the 3 received were tick marks on their heads. I apologize for being late. Now, get up and get ready. I'll explain what you're going to do. The 3 of them stood up angrily, still irritated that their own teacher was late. The one thought that they all had was he always like this? When the 3 of them were staring at him, Kakashi began to speak. Today's test is very simple. A team will be strong if its members understand how to collaborate with one another. All you have to do is get these bells from me, he explained, dangling a pair of small bells from his fingers. You must collaborate on this or you will not be able to obtain these. Let's get started. He leapt away, taunting them to bring it on. Sasuke and Sakura charged ahead, while Naruto remained on the sidelines. "They're up to something," Kakashi reasoned as he deflected a punch from Sakura and a kick from Sasuke. Naruto moved into the trees to hide his movements and came to a halt where he could see the bells tied to Kakashi's pants. "I'm going to make this quick so I can get back to training," he said internally as he was enveloped in yellow light. Kakashi was able to push Sakura away from him, but Sasuke leapt into the air and made some hand gestures. "Jikaki no Jutsu, Kaiten." Sasuke screamed, exhaling a massive fireball, and Kakashi responded with some hand gestures. "Doden. Doriheki." He yelled, slamming his palms to the ground and forming an earthen wall in front of him, completely blocking the incoming fireball. "That's strange, where did Naruto?" He was interrupted when he felt the bells removed from behind him. The fireball died down, and the earthen wall crumbled, revealing Kakashi staring at the ground, perplexed. Sakura, who had been pushed back by their teacher, raised an eyebrow and looked at Sasuke, and the Uchiha glanced at her before shrugging his shoulders and saying he has no idea what's going on. "Are you looking for something?" asked a voice. Sasuke, Kakashi, and Sakura all turned to face the source of the voice. Naruto was sitting on a branch of a tree, leaning against the trunk and twirling the bells in his fingers. The yellow light that had previously surrounded him had vanished. He smirked and threw the bells at his teacher, who caught them while staring at the boy. "Looks like we got you, sensei," he said as he jumped to the ground. "How did you do that?" Kakashi began before a sudden thought struck him. "Oh, you took advantage of Sasuke and Sakura's intention to distract me." "I guess I was an idiot," he admitted, slightly rubbing the back of his head. "Excellent work, Naruto." Sakura applauded. "Dobi, you did well. You actually carried out the plan," with a smirk, Sasuke said. Naruto only grinned in response until Kakashi snapped his fingers to summon the three of them. "I have to say, I wasn't expecting it to be over so quickly," he began. "I'm guessing you won't need any additional training because you breezed through the test." "Training for what?" Sakura inquired. "Tomorrow will be our first C-rank mission. It was supposed to be 2 days ago, but it is now tomorrow. We are to accompany Tazuna, a bridge builder, back to the land of waves. Originally, the Hokage wanted us to finish the D-rank mission first, but he figured Naruto would complain about how boring it was." "Hell yeah, I would!" exclaimed Naruto, before Kakashi smacked him on the back of the head. "I dislike it when people interrupt me. Now, we're supposed to meet at the Hokage's front desk tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pack everything you need or that is valuable to you. I estimate that our mission will take a week to complete. Are we okay?" Kakashi stood up as the three nodded. "Then go, and don't be late." He walked away, leaving the three at the practice area. They reasoned that they had nothing else to do there, so they took separate routes home. Team 7 will finally reveal itself to the shinobi world tomorrow. May the stars shine brightly on our enemies, because Uzumaki Naruto is finally here," declared Naruto to himself as he secretly returned to the training area to resume his previous activities.